Hello and welcome to the Connecting Communities podcast. My name is Caitlin and I am the Communications Coordinator for Mass Hire Metro North Workforce Board. Our organization is dedicated to developing partnerships, generating resources, and advocating for workforce solutions that result in a skilled workforce, prospering businesses, and access to meaningful career pathways for local residents. On this show, we share workforce development stories by speaking with members of our communities who believe in the power of quality employment. Sitting down with us today is Joe Aponte, CONNECT Director at the Neighborhood Developers. The Neighborhood Developers, or TND, is a nonprofit organization devoted to creating strong neighborhoods, enabling community members to secure a stable home, achieving economic mobility, and determine their own future. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I thought we could start off by having you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your story and what led you to your current role at TND.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I could start by saying where I'm originally from and kind of what my origin story is as a human. I'm originally from the Bronx in New York City. Grew up in a working class neighborhood. My mom worked in schools and my dad was a bus driver for almost 30 years. And so I grew up in demographically in a school with almost 100% of the students qualified for free lunch. So a very much working class origins. I went to a music high school. I played bassoon, and so in all of that, I sort of helped start a music high school in the Bronx that was named after Celia Cruz. Yeah, it was a really fun experience, sort of being part as a student, as a 13, 14-year-old, being part of the design team with all of these established professionals who were really passionate about what they did and needed participation from a bunch of different perspectives to make something out of nothing. And that really inspired me at a young age. And then I went to, inspired by this environment and by these wonderful people, I went to school impassioned to be a music teacher. And so I went to NYU and studied music education. Ultimately, I ended up working for universities for a number of years instead after I graduated. So I worked in student housing, which I guess was the real start of my housing experience, was working in residence halls and helping people navigate crises at really vulnerable moments in their lives. And that can mean different things for different people. Anyway, did that for a number of years and went over to the private sector, and I worked in commercial real estate and decided that I really wanted to help sort of boost small businesses and nonprofits in the community. And so I shifted into doing consulting work with sort of my operations background, which I had sort of gained in many different ways. And so I leveraged my operations background and I started working at TND as a consultant. And was inspired by the wonderful people in the organization and the brilliant work that was happening. And so by way of sort of contracting work, I started working at TND full-time and now for about a year now as the CONNECT Director.
Very cool. I love hearing about how people end up where they are. And I'm a fellow musician. I played music all through school growing up and still today. So
what's your instrument?
I play a few. I play tenor saxophone, cello, piano, and guitar.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was what really got you up in the morning? What were you most excited to play?
Cello will always have a soft place in my heart because it was my first instrument, and I just love the classical elegance of an orchestra. But I think my favorite and what I'm best at is tenor saxophone. Yeah.
And did you play in a jazz band? Was that, yep, because you can't play cello in jazz band.
Yeah,
exactly. That's why I picked up electric bass.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think, there's a real magnetism in music teachers. and there's a real draw to the work that they're doing. And I think there's a real connection to what they do and a workforce environment. They inspire people around them, and they want people in their orbit. You know, most band teachers have a group of students who will go eat lunch in their band room. You know, and I think that's just a really inspiring profession, and being involved in the design of a high school and being exposed to these you know, educators who are passionate, I think really ingrained something in me, and I think really sparked a passion to want to help people in a way that I think is profound and is deeply connected to the work that I do today.
It's awesome. And for listeners who may not be familiar, can you talk a little bit about what CONNECT is and how it fits within the broader mission of T&D?
Absolutely. I think T&D, the Neighborhood Developers, is an organization. I think we can start with defining them and the work of T&D as an organization. So T&D as an org recognizes that housing is a real crisis for a lot of people. And that has wide implications in a number of ways, from, you know, where someone lives to the number of affordable housing units exist in a particular city, you know, to how close an immigrant might be to a grocery store that carries their, you know, ingredients that they cook with. There are so many profound implications that housing has, and T&D as an org, you know, really tries to work to combat the housing crisis. What CONNECT does is as part of that, is we manage a lot of cases for a lot of individuals, for a lot of different services. And all of those things tie back into housing stability in one way or another. We help enroll people in SNAP, for example. That helps lower their monthly expenses, which then makes housing stability a little bit closer. We have financial coaches who help people with budgeting and managing debt and planning for the future. You know, and all of that is, you know, with housing stability in mind. When people are in danger of being evicted, they come to us, and many times we can help connect them with other resources that can get them housing stability. We don't cut checks ourselves, you know, but we can help people access those services. And so CONNECT is really sort of how we help people navigate the complexities of a scarce housing environment.
Yeah, it's such important work, and I like how you mentioned that there are several issues that kind of are tied into that, and they all intersect.
Yeah, and if I can tell you a little bit more about the other legs of T&D, that, you know, maybe is helpful. You know, the Neighborhood Developers, we actually just yesterday opened 25 6th Street, which is our newest slate of affordable housing units, and we have almost 800, I believe, at this point. About 800 affordable housing units in Chelsea, Everett, and Revere. And so that's one way that we manage we help control the housing crisis, or we help manage the housing crisis, is we, you know, produce and maintain affordable housing units so that there's actual inventory out there. You know, and then we have our community building group. They help the community sort of mobilize and organize and determine what policies are important for advocacy. But they're such an important organization because they help the community organize and advocate for issues that impact them. You know, we can't tell these people who are in a housing crisis what their lived experience is. And who better to tell these stories to elected officials and advocates than the people who are going through the crisis themselves. And so, you know, we empower them to organize themselves. We don't do a lot of the work for them, they do all of it. And, you know, it's really cool to just see the community elevate and manage the way that they do. And it's the work they do is really just incredible.
Yeah, that's amazing. Kind of leaning into that a little bit more, what do you think some of the most pressing challenges your community members face today, and how is the organization helping to address them?
Yeah, I think a really pressing challenge is the threat of displacement. When you think about the implications of someone being displaced, you think that they just have to move. And it's so much more than that. You have someone with an evictions on their record if they're displaced by way of eviction, which in a lot of ways is a scarlet letter for them not being able to get housing in the future. So inherently that's a problem. Another one to consider is, being in a community like Chelsea or Revere or Everett, which are primarily the cities that we serve. There's a lot more access to public transportation than you have in a city like farther outside of the breadth of the T, or I guess even just farther outside of Metro Boston or Greater Boston. And so when someone gets displaced to a city farther outside, which is typically what's affordable, they also need a car. Right. And childcare is going to be more expensive. Culturally, you may not be around a lot of people who look like you. And so childcare is also a little scary because someone is raising your kid in a culture that's different than your own. Grocery stores that carry ingredients that you need to cook are going to be farther away, or you just won't use those ingredients anymore. There's a ripple effect that really happens when someone is displaced in profound ways, and the implications are years long and very hard to recover from. Yeah. And so at T&D and Connect, we think about ways that we can stop that happening in the first place. And it doesn't, it's success means different things for different people. And we just do our best to help folks navigate a very complex system.
Yeah, I'm glad you shed light on that, because I think a lot of people don't realize that ripple effect exists and all of the other issues that go along with being displaced. So
yeah, and in that same breath, there is something known as the cliff effect, which is sort of this point when someone's income is too much to qualify for public benefits, but it's still not enough to get by. Yeah. And so you may make too much to qualify for SNAP, but in reality, you're missing out on a benefit that's worth more than what that delta in your salary might be. Right. And so, that's another thing is people, navigate very complex systems is just how, just resources become available or not at different points in their lives.
Yeah, totally. And I think kind of going off of this, I think individual stories of people who have been impacted by work can be really powerful, and I think they can really help people understand these issues. So I'm curious if you have a story or example that illustrates the kind of impact this work has had on someone's life.
Yeah. So when a few months ago, I started working with the Leader Bank Pavilion, which is a concert venue in the Seaport. And they had an issue identifying clients or employees for their team, specifically in the cleaning crew. They would put up posts for ticket scanners or security or concessions or whatever on LinkedIn and Indeed and all of these other job post sites, and they struggled to get the cleaning people to apply for these jobs via those channels. And so we worked together and put together a hiring event where me and Grace and Sergio, who work on our team as employment specialists, the three of us screened candidates. We got their job application materials together, and then we had Live Nation come, who operates the Leader Bank Pavilion, and so for a couple of marathon days, they sat down. We had an interpreter call in, and they were able to interview and offer conditional jobs on the spot.
That's awesome.
It was a wonderful experience, and it was really cool to see people go through the employment process for the first time in the country.
Right.
You know, and that's a real consideration when you think about working with immigrant populations, is that you know, if you work in a warehouse in Honduras, you have probably never needed to write a resume before.
Right.
And writing a resume is such a second nature thought for all of us that we don't think that somebody might not even know what that is.
Right.
And it's such a different work environment and a different culture here that you know, that work in those industries would require a resume. And so working with Grace and Sergio, who understand the population and you know, can support them through this, has just been really cool to see. And so seeing people you know, show up to get their resume worked on, and then show up to get screened, and then walk out of an interview with a conditional offer, and then sit down with us to get their paperwork submitted. It was just really cool, because you can see folks who have been trying for months to get work and not really having success, and watching them sit a little taller for every step of the process. At which point, you know, I would have people sitting in front of me with big smiles on their faces, because they were able to land this job. And you know, it's seasonal work, but these are people who didn't have work experience before, who are now being able to go somewhere with 6 months of experience under their belt. So different stories like that, and it's really fun because employers are looking for opportunities like this. It's all about lining the right people up to have the right conversations. It's all about lining the right people up to have the right conversations, but there's a genuine want to elevate the community and to empower folks to land in roles. And businesses see that, and businesses can benefit from it.
Yeah, and the example you just described is, I feel like it's such an important thing to showcase, because I think people in the U.S., I think it's often hard to land a job without prior experience. It's almost like you need experience to get further experience. So like, even just something like this, like getting your foot in the door, is so crucial.
And the support that we're going to give these folks doesn't stop at placing them there. So we, pardon me, we hosted them back for their new hire orientation. And understanding that language was a barrier, we were able to have a translator, an off-site translator, translate the orientation in real time into our room, so that, pardon me, so that the Spanish and the Haitian Creole speakers could all hear the orientation in their native languages. So the orientation was given in one place in English. It was then fed into our classroom. The speakers were in Spanish, and then we had Haitian Creole speakers with headpieces on who could hear another off-site translator. And it was just like this real culmination of a bunch of people who were just excited about the work. And it was just really cool to like be there and experience and like see these three languages happening and existing simultaneously in this like cool environment.
It's so cool. I'd love to know a little bit more how TND collaborates with local partners and stakeholders to improve or better connect workforce development initiatives in Chelsea, Revere, Everett, etc.
Yeah, in a lot of different ways. TND and Connect, we're always open to collaborating with partners and elevating each other. And that has presented itself in a number of different ways. We sit on the Chelsea Good Jobs Coalition, and so that is the city of Chelsea and a bunch of other sort of workforce organizations within the city, including Mass Hire, including La Colaborativa, Bunker Hill Community College. And so it's just a coalition of people who want to put things together and who want to work together in practical ways to land people good roles. Yeah. In Revere, we are part of the Revere Works Coalition. And so in doing that, we do the same thing. We collaborate with the city of Revere and other major stakeholders, again, including Mass Hire. And that's how that's one of the many ways that I have gotten involved in work with Mass Hire. And being part of these coalitions really helps spark tangible ways to collaborate with these organizations as well. I'm working right now with another nonprofit to get union workers placed, and we could place as many as 20 people in work making $21 an hour, which is really good for the communities that we serve. Yeah. And so there's a lot of opportunity, and it kind of, is born from collaborating and from having good relationships, and not just picking up the phone when you need somebody, but like fostering a good relationship earnestly for the improvement of the community.
Yeah, it's so amazing. Zooming out a little bit, what role do organizations like TND play in the broader conversation around housing and workforce development and equity in Massachusetts?
I think there are a lot of different roles that can be taken. I think it's all through the lens of advocacy. And, who better to advocate than the clients that we serve? So in whatever we do, also ensuring that we are doing a service to our community, doing a service to our clients, not unintentionally doing harm, and elevating them to do service for themselves as well. I really think it's just important to amplify people and amplify their stories. Yeah. And spend our time lifting up communities, lifting up organizations, lifting up our clients, and maybe we're lifting them up so that they can get a job, and maybe we're lifting them up to tell their story and advocate for what they need. But I think what I love about my job is, I think, directly tied to what our role is, and it's just to do good. And everything that we should do should be in that spirit.
Yeah, totally. And that honestly kind of answers my next question too, but like thinking about systemic change versus just individual support, like how do you advocate for that systemic change?
Data. Yeah. Especially in an environment where it seems like the truth is up for debate, data is important.
Yeah, the numbers don't lie.
Exactly. And so that means different things. I think for the team that I am fortunate enough to manage, I need to challenge them to collect data. Yeah. Not people's individual demographic information, but it's hard for TND as an organization to ask for financial support if we don't have the data backing up the work that we're doing. Right. And so capturing that data is important. And so creating an environment to collect the data is important. sorry, I'm getting on a real tangent that I think is unrelated to what you need.
No, I mean, it's all relevant.
Yeah, I think, but collecting data, having data, presenting data, organizing data is our strongest ally in doing the work that we do and making it easy for other people to see just how important it is.
Yeah, totally. I have a couple questions left.
Yeah.
How can the listeners to this episode support the work of TND or get involved?
Yeah, I think following us on all of our social things and sort of just keeping abreast of the work that we're doing is really cool. If you happen to be a business owner or you can think about ways that CONNECT can kind of elevate businesses and help empower our community, I would love to have conversations with business owners or people who can put me in touch with finding meaningful work for folks. If you're a job seeker, reach out to us on our website. If you fill out an intake form, we'll get to you really soon. And other than that, a conversation's better than silence. So, reach out and let's talk, because if you're a person who is, looking to do good, then let's find ways to do good together.
Yeah, I love that. And finally, what is your favorite part about your role?
For the first time in a really long time, it feels important for the work that I do to be good. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean that, like, if I do good quality of work, then more people benefit. Yeah. If I can help build a system or build an environment for my team to help more people, that would be really cool. Yeah. And it's really fun to see sort of, I guess what I would say is, I'm trying to think of how I want to word this, but like, I'm motivated to do good work because people benefit from it. Yeah. And it's fun because what didn't motivate me before was doing good work to, widen margins. Right. For investors. That's just not my gig. That's not what made me happy. And I feel really motivated to do good work because good work means that people get helped.
Yeah, I really connect with that. I think being connected to the mission of what you're doing is so crucial for just being motivated and, like you said, doing good work.
Yeah, I'm a millennial, so I've always been, sort of challenged to find meaning in the work that I do, and I'm fortunate enough to feel like I'm in the right place at the right time to do this kind of work. Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, those are all my questions. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add, but
I just thank you for your time. Thank you for asking about our story. It's been really fun over the last year to see the different things that have worked, to see the trajectory in which we're going, to see collaborations starting that are going to benefit just the community, and that's just really exciting. And the fact that anyone's interested in hearing what we're doing is really cool. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. It was a great conversation.
Thanks, Caitlin.